Mbappé didn't like to stir things up, but when he heard those words on live TV, something in him shifted. It wasn't anger or pride, just a quiet understanding of the truth. Let us know where you're watching from today. The evening in Paris felt usual grey skies, light rain, and a sense of stillness in the air. Inside a studio near the Seine, the lights buzzed overhead. The set had been warmed by rehearsal. The cameras were ready. Piers Morgan sat at the center of the stage, reviewing his notes on the legacy of football, particularly Mbappé. The crew made last-minute adjustments, lights, makeup, a dab of powder on his forehead. Mbappé nodded politely as he sat down. His posture was perfect, his smile small but confident. He had done this many times before. Piers greeted him. "Let's talk legacy, shall we?" The first 20 minutes were easy talking about his career, his family, his life outside football. But then Piers asked the big question: do you see anyone who could threaten your legacy today? Someone who could carry the torch? Mbappé didn't hesitate. He leaned back, crossed his legs, and spoke calmly. "There are good players, great players, but legacy isn't just about talent. It's about pressure, mindset, and winning when it matters." Piers leaned forward. "What about Kylie and Mbappé? He's had an incredible rise, don't you think?" Mbappé smiled, but his face remained neutral. "He plays to be accepted," Cristiano said. "I play to dominate." The room stayed still. No one reacted immediately. The audio crew exchanged quick looks, and the producers made quick notes. Piers leaned in, sensing a shift in the mood. "You think he lacks something? Mentality?" Cristiano shrugged. "He's a good player, but not the same." Cut to the control room. Mbappe's face appeared on a monitor. He was sitting at home in Paris. His tea was half drunk on the table beside him. His agent had paused the video right when Cristiano's words came up. "He plays to be accepted." Mbappé blinked slowly, but his expression didn't change. He was taking in the words, but he didn't react. He had heard similar things before. In the studio, the interview continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Piers adjusted his posture. "Well, funny you mention Mbappé. We've spoken with his team. He'll be on the show next week." Cristiano smiled again, but it wasn't as friendly this time. Good for him. Back in Paris, Mbappé stood up from the sofa. He stretched his shoulders and walked to the window. The rain was tapping softly on the glass. His phone buzzed. It was his agent. "You saw it?" his agent asked. "I did," Mbappé replied calmly. "Want to respond?" Mbappé didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the quiet street below. "Not for me," he said after a moment, "but maybe for someone else." It wasn't about pride or ego. It was about something else. That night, the clip went viral. The story spread quickly. Twitter was full of reactions. Headlines popped up everywhere. Cristiano Ronaldo dismisses Mbappé on live TV. Some pundits defended Cristiano. Others called it unnecessary. But one thing was clear. Mbappé had heard the words, and the world was waiting for his response. Backstage at the studio, Cristiano checked his phone after the interview. Hundreds of mentions. thousands of shares. He handed the phone to his assistant with a chuckle. "They always overreact," he said. But deep down, he knew something was different this time. This wasn't just banter. This was personal. In Paris, Mbappé had already gotten into bed. His eyes were closed, but sleep didn't come. He wasn't rehearsing comebacks. He wasn't making a plan. He was thinking back to the time he had spent, playing on the dirt fields of Bondy, to the moments when people told him he wasn't strong enough, skilled enough, or fast enough. He remembered his father's quiet drives home after those days. He wasn't angry. He just remembered everything. And for the first time in a long time, he felt that same quiet resolve, the one that had driven him to this point. Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere in London, a seat on Piers Morgan's set was being prepared. But this time, it would be for someone else. The next morning in Paris was quiet. The grey light filtered through the curtains, and the rain tapped lightly against the window. The city woke up slowly. Mbappé sat at the kitchen table, his breakfast untouched, as he scrolled through the storm on social media. Cristiano's interview with Piers Morgan had gone viral. Clips, TikToks, reaction videos, everything was about Cristiano's words. The moment when he said, "He plays to be accepted, I always played to dominate," had already been watched over 10 million times. Mbappe's phone buzzed. Another message. Then another. Teammates, family, journalists, everyone was reaching out. "How do you feel about what Cristiano said?" He turned the phone face down on the table. His wife came into the room, placing a hand on his shoulder before sitting across from him. "You don't have to say anything," she said softly. "Let them talk." But Mbappé wasn't listening to her. His mind was elsewhere. He thought back to when he first arrived in Paris. Monaco had felt like a dream. But PSG was a different world. He had to fight to be heard, to be seen. It wasn't just football. It was about proving his worth. Later that day, his agent called again. Piers Morgan's team reached out again. "They want you on the show next week." Same setting, in person. Mbappé didn't respond immediately. "You don't have to answer them," his agent said. "But there are people watching. Not just the fans, the kids who look up to you. The ones who hear what Ronaldo said and wonder if they're good enough." That struck something in him. Not pride, not ego, just responsibility. He asked for a moment alone. Then he walked into the room where he usually prayed. The air was still, the carpet soft under his feet. He stood there quietly for a while, listening to the silence. When he came back, he picked up his phone. "Tell them I'll come," he said, his voice calm. "But only if it's live." "Live?" his agent asked, surprised. "I won't say anything twice," Mbappé replied. The producers were excited, though cautious. The buzz was growing. Cristiano versus Mbappé. Social media was all over it now. The tension had a date. Piers Morgan, never missing an opportunity, tweeted, "Next week, same studio, different voice." Meanwhile, in Madrid, Ronaldo was in the middle of a training session when his assistant passed him the news. Cristiano paused, reading the message, but then returned to training without saying a word. Back in Paris, Mbappé stayed out of the media's reach. No interviews, no comments, no posts. He prepared in silence. His coach noticed it in his play, more grounded. His teammates felt it in the locker room, a kind of focus that carried weight. No irritation, just focus. The night before the interview, Mbappé took a walk along the Seine. The sky was a mix of soft purple and grey. The water was calm. A few fans waved from a distance, but no one approached him. He looked like a man who didn't want to be disturbed. The next day, the energy in the studio was different. The staff spoke in whispers, and security was tighter than usual. Cristiano arrived first, calm, composed. He greeted peers with a smile and took his seat. Then Mbappé arrived. He was quiet, watchful. He didn't smile, but there was no coldness in his face. He sat down, removed his jacket, adjusted his collar, and waited. Peers started the show last week. We had Cristiano Ronaldo with us. It sparked quite the reaction. Tonight, we're joined by Kylian Mbappé, a man who, if social media is to be believed, needs no introduction. The audience chuckled lightly. Mbappé nodded once. Peers dove right in. Kylian, let's get straight to it. You heard what Cristiano said last week, that you play to be accepted, that he plays to dominate. What's your reaction? Mbappé took a breath before answering. It's not personal, he began. But it's not new either. Peers blinked. Not new? I've heard that tone before, Mbappé replied. In dressing rooms, in airports, even on the pitch. It's always the same. If you don't speak up, they think you don't have something to say. If you don't fight for the camera, they think you don't belong in the picture. The studio went quiet. Cristiano didn't interrupt. He stared straight ahead. Pierre shifted in his seat. Are you saying you felt dismissed? I'm saying. Mbappé responded, his voice calm. I didn't come here to respond. I came because there are kids watching. Kids who pray in Arabic. Kids who come from places like mine. Kids who don't speak with noise but with actions. They need to know that being different doesn't make you lesser. Humility doesn't mean weakness. The room had changed. It felt heavier now, as if every word had weight. Peers looked between the two men. Cristiano was silent, but his face held something different. A shift, a change in how he was listening. Peers turned back to Cristiano. Would you like to respond? Cristiano raised an eyebrow. I respect his view, he said quietly, but the tone had shifted. The silence that followed was thick with meaning. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was simply real. Mbappé wasn't defending himself anymore. He was defining himself. The studio remained still. The silence that filled the room now wasn't awkward, it was heavy with meaning. Mbappé sat with his hands on his lap, his posture relaxed, but his presence strong. Cristiano, a few feet away, sat with his arms crossed, his face unreadable. But there was a shift in his expression. Peers, ever the master of tension, cleared his throat and glanced down at his notes. Not because he needed them, but to give the room space to breathe. This isn't quite the football conversation I expected, Peers said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. But I think it's one people needed to hear. Peers turned his attention back to Cristiano. You've always been outspoken. You've owned your ambition, your hunger for greatness. Do you think there's room in football or in life for someone like Mbappé, who doesn't shout to be heard? Cristiano leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He spoke slowly, carefully. Look, I never said he wasn't great, Cristiano said. But greatness looks different to different people. For me, it's about winning numbers, defining moments. He glanced at Mbappé, then back to Piers. I don't know his motivations, but I've fought my entire life to be number one. I don't apologize for that. Mbappé didn't respond right away. He nodded slightly, acknowledging Cristiano's words. Then, after a brief pause, he spoke. We're not so different, he said. You grew up fighting to prove yourself. I did too. The difference is, when you made it, they called you a legend. When I made it, they said it was luck. Piers raised an eyebrow. Do you think race or religion plays into that? Mbappé met his gaze directly. His words were steady, clear. I know it does, he said, the truth in his voice undeniable. The studio was silent. No one spoke. I score a hat-trick and I'm the Egyptian king. I miss a penalty and I'm the Muslim who let the team down. His words hung in the air, piercing the tension. That line, that feeling, it was always there, sometimes barely noticeable, sometimes loud, but always present. The audience sat still, processing. No applause, not yet. It wasn't the moment for it. Cristiano uncrossed his arms and leaned back in his chair. He didn't respond immediately. His face was thoughtful. I've had my critics, Cristiano said softly, but your mistakes, they never made people question where you came from. Piers leaned back, letting the silence stretch. The atmosphere wasn't hostile. It was just human, real. I'd like to show you both something, Piers said suddenly, standing up. The lights dimmed in the studio. A short video began to play on the screen behind them. It started with children barefoot, running on dusty pitches in Egypt, kicking around a ball made of plastic bags. A boy, no older than 10, stood in front of the camera, his hair wild, his eyes bright. I want to be like Mbappé, he said with a proud grin. The video cut to murals of Mbappé painted on walls in Cairo. Fans, wearing his shirt, were seen praying in mosques, sharing their stories. Young players, inspired by him, talked about how they watched PSG just to see Mbappé. The screen faded to black. Piers turned back to the room. Cristiano, I know you've inspired millions, he began. But what does it feel like to see that kind of meaning in someone else's journey? Cristiano took a moment to answer. His gaze dropped to the floor before lifting back up to the screen. It's powerful, he said quietly. Piers turned to Mbappé. Do you feel the weight of that responsibility every time you step onto the pitch? Mbappé nodded. Every match, every interview, every time I walk into a room where they don't expect someone like me. The room was silent again. Piers leaned forward. His voice was softer now. Why did you really come here, Kylian? Mbappé looked away for a moment, collecting his thoughts, before looking directly at Piers. Because silence lets people believe things that aren't true. he said. Then he turned slightly to face Cristiano. You think I play to be accepted, but I play for a village that didn't have electricity when I was a child. For kids who eat once a day and dream of boots they can't afford. I play so their names will mean something one day. Cristiano didn't interrupt. He just listened. I don't play to dominate, Mbappé continued. I play so they don't disappear. The audience was still. No applause. The room was heavy with emotion. Piers glanced between the two men before turning back to Cristiano. Do you regret what you said? There was a pause. Cristiano took a breath. I regret that I didn't understand what it meant to him, he said quietly. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't defiance either. It felt genuine, real. Piers nodded. I think we've had enough headlines for a lifetime tonight. He looked at the camera as the music faded in, soft and calm. Cristiano stood first. Reaching out to Mbappé. Mbappé stood as well. They shook hands. It wasn't a performance. Just two men who had walked different paths, now meeting in the middle. As they walked off set, Mbappé passed a production assistant holding a phone. On the screen, comments were flooding in. One read, "For the first time, I felt seen." Another said, "He didn't raise his voice, but he said everything." Mbappé didn't smile, but his shoulders relaxed slightly. He hadn't come to win. He had come to tell the truth. And in the end, that was enough. The audience had left, but not before lingering a little longer than usual. Some nodded at Mbappé as they walked out. One young woman even mouthed, "Thank you," as she passed. He nodded back, a small but meaningful gesture. In the dressing room, Mbappé sat alone. The light above the mirror buzzed softly. He was still wearing the same white shirt, now slightly creased at the elbows. He hadn't changed. He didn't need to. There was a knock at the door. It wasn't security. It wasn't his agent. It was Piers. He stepped inside quietly. No cameras, no clipboard, just an awkwardness in his movement. I've done a lot of interviews, Piers began, sitting down across from him. But most of them are noise. Tonight wasn't. Mbappé just nodded, acknowledging the truth in Piers' words. Piers leaned forward, hesitating for a moment before speaking. You said something earlier about playing so they don't disappear. That stayed with me. Mbappé met his gaze. Good, he said simply. A long pause stretched between them. I don't want to ruin the moment, Piers added, his smile faint. But you just changed the way a lot of people see you. Maybe even the way some see themselves. Mbappé stood up, stretching gently. That wasn't the point, he replied, his voice calm. Piers raised an eyebrow. Then what was? I didn't come to win anything tonight, Mbappé said. I just wanted to make sure that one kid just won hears something different than what they're used to. He picked up his jacket. Because I was that kid. Piers didn't respond, just nodded in understanding. Meanwhile, far away in Turin, Cristiano trained alone on the pitch as the sun began to set. The floodlights cast long shadows on the field. His assistant handed him his phone. You've been tagged in another video from the interview, the assistant said. Cristiano didn't look up. Let it be, he replied softly. The assistant hesitated but said nothing. That night, Cristiano posted a simple message on his Instagram story, a black background with white text. Respect is earned in silence too. There were no tags, no explanation, but everyone understood. Back in Paris, Mbappé kept a low profile, no interviews, no statements. He returned to PSG's training ground early. Before most of the team had arrived, staff greeted him with respectful nods, but nothing more. He preferred it that way. During a passing drill, one of the younger players came up to him. "I saw the interview," the boy said, almost nervously. Mbappé looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "I just wanted to say thank you," the player said quietly. "You said things people like me feel, but never say." Mbappé placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You don't have to say it loud," he replied. "Just play like you mean it." In Madrid, Ronaldo posted something similar on his Instagram, a black background with white text. Respect is earned in silence too. It wasn't tagged, it wasn't explained, but everyone understood. A few days later, Piers Morgan was interviewed on another program. The host asked him what had stood out most from his conversation with Mbappé and Cristiano. "It wasn't a debate," Piers said. "It was perspective." Cristiano came in with his story. Mbappé came in with his purpose. And somehow, neither of them needed to win. The host raised an eyebrow. "Did Mbappé change your opinion of him?" Piers smiled. "He reminded me that greatness doesn't always look like noise. Sometimes it looks like restraint." In homes across the world, people rewatched the moment. When Mbappé said, "I play so they don't disappear," the line was no longer just about football. It had become something else entirely. The buzz around the interview faded, but it didn't fully go away. In Cairo, teachers played the clip during morning assemblies. In London, a boy who had never spoken in class raised his hand to say, "I'm like him." In Istanbul, a mural of Mbappé appeared overnight, not in his PSG kit, but in a simple shirt with the words "play so they don't disappear" written beneath. Mbappé said nothing. No posts, no interviews. He simply returned to training, running past defenders, scoring goals, laughing with teammates, helping one of the younger players with shooting drills. He went home quietly, but the echo of his words was everywhere. A few days later, Mbappé visited a small school in a quieter part of Paris. No cameras, no announcement, just him and a few boxes of footballs and kits. The school didn't know he was coming. In the classroom, the children sat in stunned silence as he walked in. One girl whispered to her friend, "He looks like my uncle." Another boy asked, "Are you going to be on TV again?" Mbappé smiled. Softly, "Maybe. But today, I'm just here to play." The kids headed outside onto a field that was wet and muddy, the goalposts leaning slightly to the side. The grass had patches of brown where it had worn down. The kids didn't care. Neither did he. He played with them for about 20 minutes, letting them score, letting them tackle him. When it was over, the kids crowded around him, asking the usual questions. "Do you know Ronaldo? Are you faster than Mbappé? Do you ever get scared before a match?" But one boy, small and quiet, didn't ask anything. He just stood beside Mbappé, watching him. Mbappé noticed him and knelt down. "What's your name?" he asked. "I mean," the boy whispered. Mbappé cute handed him the ball. "You like football?" The boy nodded. "Then never let anyone tell you how loud you have to be," Mbappé said quietly. That was it. No photo, no speech, just a simple moment. And it was enough. Meanwhile, far away in Turin, Cristiano continued to train alone. As the floodlights cast long shadows on the pitch, his assistant approached with a phone. "You've been tagged in another video from the interview," the assistant said. Cristiano didn't look up from his training. "Let it be," he replied, his voice calm but firm. A few moments passed, and the assistant remained silent. Later that night, Cristiano posted something simple on his Instagram feed, a single sentence. "We all fight our own way, respect." No image, no comment section open. But everyone understood the message. Back in Paris, Mbappé kept a quiet schedule. No interviews, no statements. He was focused, heading to PSG's training ground early again. The staff greeted him respectfully, but without drawing too much attention. He liked it that way. During a passing drill, one of the younger players came up to him again. "I saw the interview," he said quietly. Mbappé turned toward him and waited. "I just wanted to say thank you," the boy continued, his voice filled with gratitude. "You said things that people like me feel, but never say." Mbappé placed a hand on his shoulder, offering a quiet reassurance. "You don't have to say it loud," he said gently. "Just play like you mean it." In Madrid, Ronaldo posted a story on his Instagram, a black background with white text. "Respect is earned in silence too." It wasn't tagged, it wasn't explained, but everyone understood the message. A few days later, Piers Morgan was interviewed on another show. The host asked him about the encounter with Cristiano and Mbappé. It wasn't about a debate. Piers said, "It was about perspective." Cristiano came in with his story. Mbappé came in with his purpose. And somehow, neither of them needed to win. The host raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Did Mbappé change your opinion of him?" Piers smiled. "He reminded me that greatness doesn't always look like noise. Sometimes it looks like restraint." In homes across the world, people rewatched the moment Mbappé said, "I play so they don't disappear." That line wasn't just about football anymore. It had become something more. The buzz around the interview gradually died down. The world moved on, as it always does, onto the next story, the next drama, the next quote. But the memory of that night, that moment on live television, lingered. In Cairo, teachers showed the clip during morning assembly. In London, a boy who had never spoken in class raised his hand and simply said, "I'm like him." In Istanbul, a mural of Mbappé appeared overnight, not in his PSG kit, but in a simple shirt with the words "play so they don't disappear" written beneath. Mbappé said nothing. No posts, no interviews. He returned to his training routine, running, scoring, laughing with teammates, helping one of the younger players improve their shooting. He went home quietly, without fanfare, but the impact of his words remained, rippling out in ways bigger than football. A few days later, Mbappé visited a small school in Paris, one that many people overlooked. No cameras, no press releases, just him and a few boxes of footballs and kits. The school had no idea he was coming. The children stared in disbelief. As he walked into the classroom, one girl whispered, "He looks like my uncle." Another boy asked, "Are you going to be on TV again?" Mbappé smiled. "Maybe. But today, I'm just here to play." The kids ran outside onto a muddy field. With crooked goalposts, the grass was worn thin in places. None of them cared about that. Mbappé acute played with them for 20 minutes, letting them score, letting them tackle him. Afterward, they crowded around him, asking all the questions they'd heard on TV. "Do you know Ronaldo? Are you faster than Mbappé? Do you ever get scared before a match?" But one boy, small and quiet, didn't ask anything. He just stood beside Mbappé, watching him. Mbappé noticed him. He knelt down and asked, "What's your name, Amin?" The boy whispered. Mbappé acute handed him the ball. "You like football?" The boy nodded. "Then never let anyone tell you how loud you have to be," Mbappé said. That was it. No photos, no speeches, just a moment. And it was enough. Meanwhile, far away in Turin, Cristiano continued training alone. His assistant approached with a phone. "You've been tagged in another video." From the interview, the assistant said. Cristiano didn't respond immediately. He simply nodded, his focus still on the pitch. "Let it be," he said softly. Later that night, he posted one final message. "We all fight our own way. Respect." No explanation, no commentary. Just those words. In Paris, Mbappé sat in his study, surrounded by photos and books. He opened an old drawer, pulling out a crumpled note. It was something he'd written when he was 17, just before leaving Bondy for Monaco. The note read, "They don't believe in you. That's not your problem." He smiled, folded the note back, and placed it in the drawer. He stood up, turned off the light, and left the room. Outside, the city was quiet. The rain had stopped. Somewhere in the darkness, a boy was watching that interview for the first time, hearing a voice that sounded a little like his own, saying the words he didn't know he needed to hear. That was the real win. Asterisk. If this story moved you in any way, we invite you to stay with us. There are still more truths to tell, more voices to hear, and more moments that matter. Subscribe now and don't miss what's coming next. God bless.